All right. Well, welcome everybody to Breaching the Boardroom podcast. I am your host, David Morrow. And in today's episode and in the studio with us today is Derek Wolfe, CEO, president of Wolfe Industrial, and will walk us through his trajectory to leadership, some great stories, some personal stories. Derek's a friend of the podcast and a phenomenal leader. Sir, welcome to the studio, man.
Thanks for having me, David. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So tell everybody kind of what Wolfe Industrials does and kind of set the stage, and then let's walk back into some of your career trajectory stories.
Sure. Wolfe Industrial is an industrial metal fabrication shop where some people would use the term job shop. We
Ah,
really specialize in the food and beverage industry, just supporting maintenance crews and a lot of fabrication and installation, which includes material handling systems, dust collection, safety, mezzanines, catwalks, you really name it, and all types of material from mild steel to stainless to aluminum, even some copper. And we deal in a lot of different industries, including the food and beverage, but also automotive, plastics, mining, some chemical, and just there's no telling what we'll be into next.
yeah, exactly. And then you guys do some work with, like, is it Quaker Oats? Was it Kraft it was Quaker Oats? I thought, right?
General Mills, General
General
Mills.
Mills. Sorry, no offense to the wrong brand, but yeah. So you guys do that, and you guys provide like on-site staffing, and
Correct.
as well as the project work you were just describing.
Right. We do a lot of capital work for them, but we're also embedded contractors there. So we have 8 individuals that show up to work there. They built us a small shop on
That's
their
great.
facility location. So
Yeah,
yeah, we've been there for almost 20 years now, and we have a couple other customers who use us as embedded contractors as well, just to support their maintenance crew.
that's fantastic. So now you stepped into this role as leader, and it was interesting because your dad had been involved in leading the organization. Your uncle was involved. You've had other family members kind of do it. And when you and I first got together, you were like, "Well, I'm the one still standing." You're like, "I'm the one," and you're taking a different approach to leadership. So walk us through this. Like, how did you go from being a little kid wanting to be a fireman or Superman to
Astronaut.
or astronaut? There you go. Like, that's good. That's pretty cool. Like, yeah, I'm afraid of heights, so I don't want to like stare down at the world. I'd freak out. But so walk us through, like, how did you know you wanted to go into the family business and take on leadership? It's because it's a tough ask. A lot of people are like, oh, they get handed it. And that clearly is not the case. Anybody that's ever gone to work for their
Right.
parents like would know, like, no, it's a lot harder in a lot of ways.
It certainly can be.
Yeah.
So my grandfather started the business in
Mm,
79 with
cool.
the help of my dad and uncle. And so they ran the business for quite some time. He passed in 2012. But during all that time, I guess in the 90s, I started in high school as cleaning bathrooms and sweeping and loading trucks. And that's what I did for a couple summers. And I cleaned up after people here. After
It's a
that,
good life lesson, right? I mean,
yeah,
first of
yeah,
all,
it
when you're
was.
in high school, that's a good job, right? When you're in high school, it's fantastic.
I could not wait to go back to school every year
Exactly.
because work was so hard. I do remember that. And
Yeah.
but the work is definitely rewarding. And after I graduated from high school, I worked part time while I was going to college as a welder, and I learned how to fabricate. Then I learned how to be in the field and how to rig and be a millwright. And then after that, I ran the shop for a little bit. I've done purchasing here. I've done estimating. I've done just about every single
I was
position
just about
here.
to say, I don't know all the different roles there, but it sounds like you've
I hit a
had
lot of
every
them.
type of, at least in every department.
Yes, I have. And so I felt well equipped to
Hmm.
run this business when it was handed to me this past year. But the difference is we are a family business, and so we've always been ran like a family business, but we require some bureaucracy that we haven't had in the past. Family business is a lot of assumptions and
Right. And not,
expectations.
and things, and yeah, and probably not everything would be written down in policies or
Correct.
processes or procedures because it's all in the family leaders' heads. It's all in their minds. Like they've been doing it forever and they know how to do it. So now that you come on board, you have to like say, we need a formal process here, or we need to document this stuff.
That's exactly right. So just unfortunately, more paperwork, more process, which slows things down, but creates those checks and balances and those guardrails that are so necessary when you begin to grow. When the
Yeah,
company first started, it was, literally my uncle, dad, and my grandfather. And today we have 63 employees. So,
that's great.
um, you know, uh, the same rules that worked then cannot be the same rules that work now. So
Right.
unfortunately, part of that is moving towards a more bureaucratic corporate culture, but still trying to maintain the good things about a family business, which is basically, to me, keeping in mind that the people are our greatest resource.
Absolutely. So when you were, and I love that you came from the trades and you learned welding and things like that. I mean, skills like that are one of those that are just, we, especially in our country, we need so many more of, right? And we need to, and there's a lot of initiatives out there to make that cool and appealing because those are the, I'm older now and a lot of my friends that are doing really well are the ones in HVAC and plumbing, and they did that and then they learned the business end and they started their own and they just grew it, and that's outstanding. That's like the American dream. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I heard a stat the other day. It's something like it's almost 10 to 1 for people coming into the trade and people moving out.
Oh
So
wow.
there's definitely a huge deficit of skilled trade.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Uh,
could see
and
that.
what we've done is we've gone to some local schools around, like
Yeah.
TCAT, some
Yeah, and
technical,
like the tech centers or the career centers.
yeah, and really
Yeah.
formed relationships with them, and so we've gotten some really really phenomenal young um, skilled guys here
It's
recently
great.
that it's very promising. So they're
Yeah.
out there. I think the idea that people these days don't work as hard or they don't like hard work or they don't,
I think that's
I
every
don't subscribe.
generation.
Yeah, right. I don't
My
subscribe
dad
to
used to say that to me, and then I ran circles around him. No,
that.
not
Right.
at all. Not at all. Not
Yeah.
at all. I worked for my dad came from nothing, built up a trophy and awards business. And I worked for him for like 1 or 2 summers. And I was like, I'm getting back to school, man. I do not want to do that. It was just, and it was just, it was his way and he had started it. And I was like, oh man, that's a big ask. I got brothers. I'm like, you guys go do that. It just wasn't, I couldn't do it. Like it was a really exciting opportunity, but also one that was really, really just too much of an ask, I think, at the time.
I can
But
understand.
yeah, I mean, it's just, but then again, I'm the host of the podcast. I'm not the guest. So this is the benefit of it is you get to be in your seat, not the idiot just asking general questions.
There was definitely a time when I didn't know what I really wanted to do. I didn't the
Yeah,
work that we do. A lot of
that's
times, what we
normal.
do for people is the maintenance that the maintenance crew there doesn't want to do. So
Right.
it's oftentimes hot and nasty and
Hmm.
really cold and smells like onions, or you just, I mean, we work in all kinds of crazy facilities.
Of course.
But when I really asked what I wanted out of life, to me, this opportunity provided those things, which is really a work life balance.
Yeah. Yeah. Phenomenal. Yeah. You never asked yourself, do I want to stop cyber criminals from foreign countries from
No,
breaking
but that
into
sounds pretty cool
companies?
too.
Yeah. I like that. I don't know why I picked that one. That was brutal. So, anyway, like one of the questions I'm always curious of, because you and I've spoke and your culture there is very good and you really develop your teams. So, how in leadership does one do that, keeping things positive while still getting stuff done? Like it's great to be super nice and then they miss deadlines and everything else. Well, that's no good, right? And then
Hmm.
you don't want to be dictatorial and hard because then good people will leave and it's not a good culture and you don't want to work in that anyway. So how are you doing that? Like how are you so effective at that? Because you are. So how are you doing
I think that's a step-by-step process. It's meeting people where they're at.
that?
It's providing clear communication on expectations, often documenting those expectations, and then being consistent in how you either reward or, I guess, hold accountable. So, I compliment and praise my team often.
Yeah.
So that way, when I do have an issue with something, I can go to them and tell them the
They know
issue with
it's not
that.
threatening. They
It's
know it's
not.
not threatening. They know that you believe in them. There's just this one thing error or
They need to
one thing
tighten up
that
on this
needs
one
fixed.
area, and I
Yeah.
present that in a very forward thinking manner.
Good.
There's a book called QBQ that talks about just the language that we use and how we convey the message, and using, instead of going to people and say why or how, you say like, well, when we do this next time, this is what I'd like to see. And not, hey, why didn't this get done?
Right.
Because people get immediately defensive. And it's not as much about why didn't it get done. It's more important that, hey, the next time
Right.
we do
Fix
this,
the
or
process. Oftentimes
yes,
it's the person who's either making an error in their own process or they're not following the team's process or the department's process. And so it's really just identifying that and then approaching it in a coaching way, not a dictatorial
exactly,
top down way.
exactly. I empower my people as well, and I'm quick to admit when I make a mistake.
Yeah, that's really important in leadership,
And
right?
so,
Like
yeah,
like
I think
that
that kind
makes
of confuses things.
leaders human.
I have an issue with spelling. I'm a horrible speller. And so I do PowerPoints a lot, and people laugh, and we make a joke about my spelling. So, I try to show humility and hopes
Yes.
that is contagious. And so then people are aren't as afraid to make mistakes themselves.
Yeah. That's really good. Yeah, and actually the fact that you can make light of it or your team can make light of it is a good culture example, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's good. So as you were learning all these kind of building blocks and gaining these experiences, what are some of the challenges that you had to overcome? Either personal ones or professional ones as you were building on in your career, getting toward leadership?
Uh, I think that one of the toughest challenges that I had was personal and business wise. In 2016, my daughter was diagnosed with pre-B-ALL, which is leukemia, and
I'm so sorry.
and thank you. And she's doing well now. And she got into remission, and then in 2018 she relapsed.
Uh,
And during that time, I had convinced our team to move into some commercial work that was going horribly wrong. And so I remember I was working on a project that was a year-long project. We were 6 months in, we were out of money. At the same time, I was living at Vanderbilt Hospital in Nashville while my daughter was going through radiation and a bone marrow transplant. And so, just very difficult time in my life, personally and business. And
How'd you overcome it? Like what were some of your inner thoughts to keep you persevering?
this too shall pass.
Yeah.
And I just knew that if I just kept
Thoreau.
in
Yeah, I
there,
love that.
that things would get better. And
Hmm.
luckily, my daughter did get better,
Hmm.
and
God
we got out
bless.
of
Yeah, that's
those
great.
horrible projects, and I've never looked back. But I remember I was at like a convenience store down the street. I'd left work, and I was picking up something to bring to the hotel room or hospital room, and I was standing in line, and there was people in front of me and people behind me, and just a lot of people standing around me. And at that moment, I realized that nobody standing around me knows what I'm actually going through.
Right.
And so in that moment, it just really taught me that I don't know what other people are going through.
Right.
And there could be
Oh,
somebody
that's
standing next to me
brilliant. Yeah.
in a line somewhere, and their child could be going through something, and I don't know. And so, I've tried to walk around with more empathy and giving people more grace, because everybody is going through something and we just don't know. And
Yeah.
so that experience just taught me just to be more, I think, just aware, and again, and just, it taught me a lot about empathy.
That's phenomenal. I mean, Chris Voss, author of Never Split the Difference, he talks about tactical empathy and how you don't have to absorb everybody's pain, right? Like if you do that, like it almost becomes too much to bear. But making sure that you're considering it, making sure that you let them be heard and feel heard is so important. That's a good life lesson. That's very Simon Sinek. Also,
Yeah,
like the whole like when you're in traffic and you want to let the person in. You're like, we don't know what they're going through, right? We don't know why they're behaving that way, and usually there's some fear or some anxiety or some pain that is causing some of that behavior. Have some grace, like let them cut in. What's the big difference? Like, who
right.
cares? You're still going to arrive on time,
And we try to use that same approach here.
Yeah,
If we have somebody who's showing up late for work, we don't
right.
immediately just go and say, "Hey, why are you showing up late?" We say, "Hey, what's
What's
going on?
going
Is
on?
everything okay at home?"
Yeah,
If we have kids, we ask them about their children. So we ask questions first before we make assumptions and just come down on somebody.
no, it's really good because if you just say, well, if things don't change, I don't know what the future is going to be, then the result of that, they're still human, right? The result of that is they're going to check out mentally at their job. They're going to eventually start looking elsewhere. And that's not what you want. You want people that want to be there, that want to
Right.
go above and beyond, that are excited about it. And if they're going through a trying time, asking them about it really helps. I mean, it really helps you understand, helps you like maybe what they need is a couple days of PTO just to figure it out and just to address it or whatever they need, right? And let them do that. Like let them do that. It's a small price to pay for a long-term employee as they continue
Exactly.
to develop. Yeah, that's phenomenal. How do you inspire your team or get them to develop within the field? Do you guys provide mentoring? Do you guys provide, certification help or something like, in your industry? I'm not as familiar with it, so I apologize. But,
Yeah.
like are there because I know there's like internships and there's a whole bunch of different levels of skill sets that they can get to. So
Yeah, that's a good question. So, just to go back a little bit, John Maxwell is somebody that I've read quite a few books of and is the foundation of my leadership skills. And in one of his books, he talks about the 5 levels of leadership. And I think it's level 4, but when you become a leader to train leaders, that's another level. And so I've always strived to be a leader that trains other leaders. So investing in other people and bringing them up only makes me and the company better. So we've done a couple different things over the years. We've done programs where we brought in John Maxwell's books and did a monthly read along and a video. And there was some success with that, but I don't know if that was something that's really worked well for our hourly employees, more so for the office individuals.
sure.
But what we've done in the office is I've hired a consultant that's come in and I have him training some of our C-suite individuals.
That's excellent.
We're working on now a training program, which we've tried to do training programs over the years and it's just always fallen flat. I think we're finally onto something. And what we've done is we've created a spreadsheet that has every individual on it. And then at the top, it has all the skill sets that they need because we have tons of equipment that needs to be
Right.
learned here. And we have field guys. There's all kinds of skills that need to be learned in the field. The field guys sometimes come into the shop, then they need to learn the shop stuff. So there's a lot of crossover and we need everybody to really know it all to be fully productive no matter where they're at. And then we've created a new what we would call a sales order number. And we've given that to our plant manager and said, we need 75 hours of training per month. That's your minimum. So now his goal or KPI is to hit a minimum training hours a month. And then we have finally a document that can track everybody and know what they need to know and what they do know or don't know. And so finally, we've developed a process. So we're in the process of rolling that out right now. It was a new initiative that came up with one of our strategy meetings.
That's
So
fantastic.
I'm excited to
Yeah.
see it in action.
As a
I'll have
leader, it
to think
gives you
of,
visibility too, right? It gives you visibility into the talent that you have and the skill
right.
sets. And then it gives you specifics that you can go, hey, this person, great for culture, wants it, gets it, everything. They just need these specific trainings. So let's put them on a path for that.
That's
And it
right.
helps you really, as opposed to just going, yeah, they're pretty good. I think they know what they're doing. Like
Right.
it gives you actual specifics and something you can that their manager can then like actually develop them on. That's really good.
And I think it's kind of the old like family business where it was just like, well, hey, they need to learn more, and hey, why don't you go teach him this? And the
Right.
corporate side of now we have a document with everybody's name on it, with every single skill set that they need to learn. Hey, has he learned that? And check this stuff off. So, it's that yin and yang, that balance of that bureaucracy and the family business
Right.
of trying to tackle that training gorilla, if you will.
Yeah, and it's not all bad. Like becoming a little bit more corporate. Maybe corporate isn't the right word, but it's more but but really, having better visibility and having better insight into the employees is really, you're documenting the processes, you're doing all the things because really to scale, right? You can't do everything, right? Like you won't be able to do everything. When the organization was smaller, your dad or your uncle or your grandfather might have been able to kind of show somebody here, but now there's a whole department there. And as you guys continue to grow, you're no longer responsible for doing the job. You're responsible for coaching the people who are leading the people who are doing the job. And so there's different skill sets that need to be applied there.
And this provides more of a pathway for promotion too, and
Yeah.
also, it's adding value to the individual. And then when they come up for their annual review, they can say, "Hey, I learned this, this, and this," and then
Right.
that gives them more leverage to make more money.
Sure.
Because
That's
if you're
exactly
adding
right.
value to yourself, you're adding value to the company, then you deserve an increase. And so
Yeah.
that's how we're kind of pitching it to them. It's like if you want to make more, then add more value to yourself and you'll get it. And so if you've ever been to Home Depot and you go back into their bathroom, if you ever they have their like little employee cafeteria back there, but they have this big board and it's basically a pathway, a promotional pathway. And it'll have like this guy, a picture of him when he came on as
Yep.
maybe the garden area whatever, and then he became a cashier, and then he became the cashier manager, and then he was the assistant store manager, and it's a picture of this person, and so there it's a very clear pathway, and they can see it. It's visual, and we've never really had anything like that, and so that's really what we're trying to get to because we don't want people to come here for a job. We want people to come here for a career
Yeah.
and we want them to stay for the long term because and we've done that. We've done a good job of that. Our average tenure right now in the shop is probably 11 years, I think, and then in the office it's probably more like 20 years.
Wow.
So we have a really good thing going, but it can get better.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. I absolutely love that. It really it provides visibility all around and organizations they invest so much in their people. Like there's so much time and effort and culture development and individual development. And then just to have a whole bunch of attrition really kind of sinks starts to have a lot of leaks in the boat, right? You want to be a place that people choose to stay and then still see a future, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's something that we have to fight every once in a while. Our turnover rate last year was I think 9%.
Okay.
So we have a really low turnover, but it still happens. We still lose good people
Yeah.
occasionally, but
That's all part
overall,
of it. Yeah. I mean
yeah,
that, and because a
overall,
lot of things you, it seems to me like you're controlling the things you can control. Sometimes you can't control when good people leave. Like it's
yeah,
just, they have their own path. We were a stop along the way, right? But, and that's still a positive. But if we can keep them and get them to change their path and choose to stay, it's all the better.
people leave us to start their own business. That's happened
Right.
a handful of times. And if somebody's going to leave us, if they think they can provide more for
That's
their
pretty
family,
exciting. Yeah.
It's what they want, then, hey, leave on good terms and you'll be welcomed
Yeah.
back. And
Yeah.
so
Absolutely.
we actually had somebody just leave recently and he went, and 2 weeks later he was coming back. So the grass isn't always greener on the other
Well,
side.
yeah, and there's always that dream of starting your own business from scratch, and then you try and do it, and people are like, "Yeah, maybe I'm, or maybe just the timing isn't right, right? It could
Right.
be the market, could be the environment, whatever, right? Who knows? There's so many variables. Yeah, that's phenomenal. So in your studies and in the QBQ book and Maxwell, like, what are you seeing? Like, what do you think some of the ingredients are for like what makes it good? There's no wrong answer. I'm just curious about your
Certainly humility and empathy
good.
come to mind, and personal growth. To me being a leader is not as much leading people but bringing people up. And so again, like, if you can bring the people around you up, then that's just going to make you stronger, that's going to make your team stronger, that's going to make your company stronger. So to me, leadership is about adding value to the people around you.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, one of the good metrics I see in leadership is how many people like have they developed
Mm.
around them? Like, right? Like, are they able to develop their team and get people, promote from within or hire from outside, but then develop them where they want to stay and they can execute on their vision as well.
Yeah, David, I'm glad you brought that up, vision. And that's the other side of it, is providing a clear vision and communicating that vision.
It's not easy sometimes, right?
It's
Like the
not.
world's complicated and it's noisy. So it's the challenge is to make it simple and clear.
There's a
It's
book by Michael Hyatt called The Vision Driven Leader. After I read that book, I was thinking, like, oh, okay, well then what product do we need? Something outside of the box, or service, or I was very much thinking about the customer and what we could provide
mm,
from them. But now my thoughts are, how do I want this company to run? What's
right.
my vision for the culture? What's my vision for how we communicate with one another? What's my vision for how we want to treat one another here? And what's my vision for the pathway for people to turn this from a job into a career? So I think, I was very narrow minded at first when I was thinking about vision. And now it's the idea of vision for me encompasses so much more. And when I've heard the saying, if you can delegate something, if someone else can do it, then delegate it. But when it comes to vision, that's something that cannot be delegated.
No, that's something that really has got to come from you.
It's got to come from the leader. So now I think you can get input on your vision from other
Yeah,
people.
leader or leadership team, right? Like
Yes.
those around you, your
But
your
ultimately, they're looking at
administration.
you to say,
Right,
which direction are we going? Because
right.
they may be equipped, but most, at least the people on my team, don't feel equipped enough to lead from a vision standpoint. And so that's something I've really had to work on myself, because I didn't know that I could do that. So
Right.
that's been a work in process. The vision thing has definitely been something that has really challenged me.
Yeah, well, it's there's a little magic to it, right? Cuz you're trying to steer the ship into the future and nobody can predict the future. And so you're like where cuz you want to skate to where the puck is going, not to where it is. And so you're like,
Yeah.
where's this thing going? Like you're trying to figure it out. Yeah. Yeah, that's and then to articulate that concisely, clearly to your team and everything
Right.
else. It's really important. That's
Yeah.
phenomenal. That's phenomenal. Well, hey man, it is always a pleasure to speak with you and I thank you so much. What is on the horizon as we're wrapping up? Like what all do you guys have planned for the remaining parts of the year and anything exciting coming up?
Yeah, some of these things internally and exciting things that we're doing is we're having strategy meetings, and that's something that we've never done before. And I was using a PowerPoint that I got from somebody who ran strategy meetings at Dell. So what this PowerPoint was
Right.
like 40 pages long. And it was like, okay, 2 weeks before your offsite meeting, you need to do home pre-work. And then day one, start with icebreakers. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this
I
is
know it's
like
a lot.
next level. I was like,
Yeah.
I really tried to, simplify that to make
Right.
that applicable to our business here. And so
Right.
it's been really exciting, and bringing people in that room that, again, don't have the confidence to be in that room, but they deserve to be in there. I've been encouraging them. Hey, look, I need your input. You have the knowledge, you have the experience. This is not out of your reach. And so
Right.
slowly but surely, we did a SWOT analysis. We had meeting after meeting, and now we've identified initiatives. We have 6 initiatives that we're working on throughout the year.
That's
One of
great.
those is to increase our laser capacity. We have a brand new laser machine that runs very little during the week. I mean, it works enough for us, but we have lots of capacity where we could definitely run some production on that. So one of our initiatives is to get more work on our laser. We're also branching out with some of our bigger contractors like Burns and McDonnell and Dennis Group, trying to get more work. We're reaching out with corporate with General Mills to do more work at some of their other facilities. So there's a lot that's going on right now, and I'm certainly excited for the remainder of the year.
That's fantastic. And that's part of that builds and feeds right into that vision, right? Like
Right.
you're able to see that. And you've mentioned a couple things that are interesting, and that is that those who you see have leadership potential, and yet they still have those inner thoughts where they're doubting themselves. And so, how do you address that? Like it's constant reminders. It's showing of examples of how they've led in the past, right?
Yeah,
Like it's
absolutely. Yeah. Reassuring them, but
yeah,
also explaining to them that I have weaknesses too.
yeah,
And so, like, one of my weaknesses that I explain to them is that I have, if anybody follows EQ, one of the characteristics is impulse control. I have an issue with impulse control. When I get an idea, I'm ready to run with it.
yes,
And so I have encouraged my team, hey, when you see me running with something and it's a bigger decision, I need you to stop and say, hey, Derek, have we thought this all the way through? Have you thought about this? And I want you to slow me down. I don't need to be surrounded by a bunch of yes people. And
exactly,
so by showing them that I have faults too and weaknesses, and then encouraging them at the same time that they can do these things that they think they can't, I think that both of those approaches show humility and then encourage them to overcome their self-doubt.
yeah. That's phenomenal, man. I mean, it shows some self reflection on your end, as well as belief in others and how to coach them up.
I have a really good team. I'll be honest with you, David. I'm really lucky. I'm surrounded by
Yeah,
some really bright people that really care about the work that they do. And so, I had a lot to start with. I'll say that.
yeah. Well, that is fantastic. We will have links to Wolf Industrial in the show notes, as well as to your social media. We encourage everybody to watch your group's trajectory over the coming months and years. So it's going to be exciting to have you back in a little while and you'd be like, well, you remember when we only had 63 people? Like, well, now we're in like
Yeah.
because we've had those, and all of a sudden you're like, holy cow, how did you guys do that? And like, there's usually a really interesting story there. So,
I would love for that, David. I appreciate
yeah, it's really cool. Well, Derek, you and I will speak separately, of course, but man, thank you so much for your time. Great, great insight. Like really, really, like really proud to see organizations like this. So we wish you guys
it.
all the best, man. Very exciting.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, bud.